नमस्कार, जय हिंद, जय भारत and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. I have with me, मेरे साथ हैं तिलक देवासर साहब. I think no better person knows the mindset of Pakistan, than Mr. Devasher. Sir, thank you so much. आपने time निकाला मेरे लिए, and in such an occasion.
Thank you, Aadi, for having me on your show again. Thank you very much.
To help
because
us
we are
understand.
meeting in very difficult circumstances.
Sir, हम लोग ऑफलाइन भी बात कर रहे थे. What do you think इनका पर्पस क्या था? क्या करना था इनको? They want to rile up the India factor. पाकिस्तानी आर्मी में डिजर्शन चल रही है ज्यादा. अपने ऊपर मार खाने के लिए कोई ऐसे काम करता नहीं है वैसे.
I think it's several factors put together. Sir. But the key, I think, of this, I feel that the speech that Asim Munir made was the first step in his campaign for getting an extension. This has been the second step. He seems to favor the alphabet P. If you remember, Pulwama was also on his watch, and now Pahalgam is also on. At that time, he was DGISI when Pulwama happened, and Pahalgam now when he is Army Chief. They thought, like in the past when President Clinton was here, President Trump was here in his first term, they created incidents. So they thought, now the Vice President is here to create this incident to let him know that all is not hunky-dory in India, in Kashmir, despite India's assertions. So to, say, put it on record. And then also, I think they're extremely worried that Kashmir has really pulled away from them. The normal Kashmiri realizes the kind of benefits that have accrued to them ever since Article 370 was done away with. And when in POK there is a lot of resentment and there are a lot of protest demonstrations taking place because they see what is happening in Kashmir, the kind of prosperity is happening in Kashmir, which they don't have. So, they thought, with one stone we can kill several birds to launch this kind of a attack. Now, it's a huge, high-risk gamble because they know the reputation of Prime Minister Modi, what he did in Uri, what he did in Balakot. They know that there will be a reaction. Yet he has gone ahead and done it, that it will be well worth the risk or the blowback that it will come. So obviously in his calculations, I think his personal factor is playing a very important role, and also to demonstrate that he is the leader when the chips are down. He is the macho guy, So I think it's a complex mixture of many, many factors that has led to this. And also one other thing, I think his own leadership in the army too. He had consolidated his position, but I think he is getting a bit insecure especially because of the high number of casualties that the armed forces, the security forces, including the paramilitary police and the army, are taking both in Balochistan and in KPK. And they can't seem to get their act together. The casualties are rising. The Taliban have literally shown them the door and said, you get lost, we're not going to do anything about you. The Baloch in any case don't want to talk to them. So I think even in the army, there is a lot of, there is some amount of pressure on him. But this is one way to consolidate his control.
Sir, there's also, Awami Action Committee has put out a couple of statements in the past 1 week. We've seen videos of them saying कि भाई ये सब नहीं चलेगा यार, यहाँ पर तुम हमारे बंदे मरवाते हो, उसके बाद तुम हमको ना पैसे देते हो ना कुछ करते हो. So there was a bit of a sort of a pushback from them saying कि भाई unacceptable, you're getting our people killed here. And that was very interesting to me. उससे पहले we've seen Hamas they brought, that Hamas chap they brought and all that. But funny thing is that backfired. 300 chaps actually sneaked out of Pakistan, and they are heading towards Syria right now. So that's Pakistan for you. वो अपने बंदों को radicalize कर रहे थे, but and there's another thing that these guys did is after this whole Awami Action Committee, they brought in these heavyweights from the LET, right? And to give those hardcore jihadi lectures and this and that. Is this the game for POJK, sir?
No, they're worried about They're worried about POJK. You see, because the protests that have taken place both in AJK, so-called AJK, as well as in Gilgit-Baltistan. Let's not forget which is the most critically and strategically important area as far as Pakistan is concerned. So there have been protests in both these for different reasons. And to re-establish their control over them, these various gimmicks about this jihadi thing, getting Hamas over, and stuff like that. So it's a worry. So it's, it is, Balochistan is up in flames, KPK is up in flames, POGK and GB also sort of start getting restless. And then Sindh, the civil protests that are taking place on the issue of those canals, it is not reported in the mainstream media. But if you look at social media and if you look at the Sindhi media, there are protests taking place every day, and serious protests, because the Sindhis realize there is no life without water. And Sindh for them is not only a river, it is the backbone of their civilization, their culture, So for them, it is a matter of life and death. Water itself is a matter of life and death. But their culture, their survival, their identity, same thing which Baloch are fighting for. The Sindhis have now come late to the party, but they are there. They're very well organized. They are a critical mass of population. So there is unrest all over Pakistan. I wonder how long it will be before the Saraikis also take to the streets. And parts of Punjab too. So, all these things put together makes Asim Munir a very worried and a very weak man. And, when you're worried and you're weak, then you will resort to all kinds of knee-jerk reactions to control or keep your power base intact.
There is also a movement right now, sir, which is more focused towards the so-called Gaza thing, which is happening. Kafi had tak they're trying to this thing, and we've seen protests against KFC and this and that and all that nonsense. Are they trying to connect Palestine with Kashmir again?
I think they're just burnishing their Islamic credentials. Or to Coach Heidi, you can always rile up people. Tell me, how is a poor man who doesn't have enough food to eat because of the electricity prices going up, because of inflation, how is he concerned about Gaza? Enough to attack KFC in Punjab where one person was lynched. The person who was killed perhaps was the only bread earner of his family. Why did you have to kill him? And what does KFC have to do with Gaza? Somebody has to explain to them that how is it an Israeli product? These are Pakistani companies, which is taken up on a franchise or lease or whatever. How are they concerned? But it's very easy. You see, like in the case of blasphemy, or like in the issue of Ahmadiyas, Gaza too is an emotive issue which helps the establishment or the religious parties to burnish their religious credentials and divert attention of the masses from the real issue at hand.
Because that's the only kind of riling up factor right now. So abhi agar kuch crackdown, something happens in Kashmir, so you'll find, theek hai, ye dekho, Indian army hamare pe zulum kar rahi hai, and this and that, and ye wo, and all that nonsense will start off. But sir, the methodology of the attack has never been used by Pakistanis recently. Not been used by Pakistanis recently. Not never been used. They did this in 26/11 also. उसके बाद से हमने ये चीज देखी नहीं. And then we saw this thing. The last civilians that they killed were Muslims. उसके ऊपर भी काफी blowback आया था. Last year when they started the campaign. This year, such a brazen attack, Pakistanis don't know. India will not keep quiet.
Also, one of the factors which I forgot to mention, see, Tahvur Rana came back and there's no news about him. He's very quiet. Obviously, he's singing. I would presume he is singing. And Pakistan is extremely worried.
Like a canary, sir.
Like a canary. And Pakis would be very worried कि इसने बताया क्या है. Because he would have revealed their connections. Not that we need any convincing, we know what the connections are. But he will put it on record in your evidence, which you can share with the rest of the world. And that would be also another worrying factor. So once again, you do something like this, you expect India will retaliate, the attention gets diverted from Tahvur Rana too. I think his 21 days custody is about to get over. He'll be produced before court again. And before he comes out and before that is done, they're hoping that India will then would have reacted by then on this outrage. And you can then divert the attention and people will forget Tahvur Rana at least for the moment. So that's one other factor that, for this attack at this stage. But you're right, the kind of attack is mass casualty attack, and deliberately targeting, picking out, not tourists. The question they asked was not, are you a tourist or are you a local? The question they asked was, are you a Hindu? So in fact, we also in our conversation should say targeting of Hindus or at best targeting of Hindu tourists. But just using the word tourist, let's not try and soft pedal, the issue. They picked out Hindus and killed them in cold blood, shot them in the head. So this is, to that extent, it reminds you of what happened in 1990 when there was an exodus of Kashmiri Pandits because of similar kind of violence, targeted violence of the Hindus.
And that's the thing, sir. Abhi tak to jo bhi hai, everybody was saying, oh, gee, attack ho gaya. Since the morning, I've been saying, let's call it what it is. This is jihad. Let's please call a stone. This is not. Let's stop soft peddling it. Ki nahi, वहाँ पर तो सारे हिंदू थे, तो obviously मरेंगे. This is the one logic I heard from someone.
Really?
वो पाक में सारे हिंदू थे, obviously मरेंगे सारे हिंदू ही ना.
तो मैं पूछा क्यों था कि तुम हिंदू हो? Why did they ask that?
हाँ, फिर पूछा क्यों? अगर पता ही था तो वैसे ही ठोक देते जाके सबको.
Yeah, exactly.
ठीक है, because you wanted to spread terror. That's why you've done this.
Yeah.
Sir, पाकिस्तानी आर्मी, ठीक है, इतने फ्रंट खुले हुए हैं इनके. बलूचिस्तान they're getting hammered and the Balochis better than anybody else. Balochis are not going to spare them. The factor that भाई इंडिया ऊपर से ठोक रहा है, they're not going to spare them. The TTP is not. Pashtuns to love a responsibility like this, love an opportunity like this कि भाई वहाँ ठुक रहा है, हाँ ठोको इसको पकड़ के. So now have the Pakistanis war game कि भाई ऊपर से इंडिया, इधर से बलोच, उधर से TTP. ये तो संभल नहीं रहे सर. ऊपर से they've taken, a country which is 3 times, 5 times their size. And China is not going to come to help. Nobody's going to come to help them. They know that.
But in the Pakistani thinking,
Sir,
in their mindset, you create a problem first, and then everybody comes rushing to solve it. If you go up the escalation ladder, the US will intervene. US and China will get together, say, withdraw, bus karo. You have attention, That is the kind of thinking their mind. When it comes to India, the mistake that a lot of people in India make is that Pakistan is not a rational state when it comes to India. They work and act irrationally. And therefore, I have felt that to deal with Pakistan, you have to be even more irrational than them. That's the only way they will learn. And that's the only time that they will be scared. And scared enough, not to resort to something like this. Because if you do the normal playbook and say, okay, we'll take the moral high ground or something like that, they laugh. They will be even more irrational. So I agree with you. Any normal country, you have a domestic problem of the Baloch, you have a domestic problem of the Pashtuns. Sindh, as I mentioned, the civil protests are going. POK and GB are getting restive. So kahin na kahin jo aapne India ka border, which is safe, why activate that? And India, they know very well, will come after them like a ton of bricks. So why poke India in the eye at this time?
It doesn't make sense, Saran, but it doesn't make sense because we are rational people.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to think like a Paki.
You have to think like a Paki. You've got to basically unscrew your brain, keep it on the side and say, how do I screw myself today?
Yeah. Well put.
There's no other way. How do you put...
It doesn't make sense.
How do you put this across otherwise? Now, sir, putting that as a this thing, let's talk about India's response options. There are multiple response options, and my theory is that we will use a whole of country approach. This will be DIME. It will be diplomatic, it will be intelligence, it will be military, and it will be economic. This is my thing. So first thing I think we will see is that the embassy and this and that reduction of staff or close down or something like that will happen. Intelligence, well, the least I say, the better it is at the moment. We all know people will die. I mean, that's simple as that. Then is the military option. And then economics, you can hit them even further because they're buying half our material from Dubai. You can really twist the tail there itself. You can give some incentives to Dubai and figure it out. Now, how do you think the response will be, sir?
I agree with all of your dime. I would just add one S. Dimes. Stratcom. One thing which we have not used or not weaponized is strategic communication. Small example, in all my public speaking, wherever an opportunity, I mentioned this. I said India is a superpower on social media. You know what happened in the Maldives case when they tried to flex their muscles? I think over 1 million tweets. Indians came down on Maldives and Maldives just had to back off. They didn't know what hit them. Now you look at Pakistan's fault lines. You look at Balochistan. When people go missing and the tortured bodies of fathers and sons and brothers are received back by the families. They tweet about it. How many, we as a major social media power should be amplifying those tweets 10,000, 100,000 times. I mean, this is a genuine human rights issue. Likewise with the Pashtuns. When their people go missing. Then you take the case of Sindh. 1,000 Hindu ladies are forcibly converted and literally married off to people twice or 3 times their age or sold into slavery or prostitution. How many people in India actually can and these are all documented cases. The name of the lady, where she was converted, what happened. How many of us actually amplify this? Take the case of the Ahmadis, the Christians. This is something that should be brought to the attention of the world day after day by 100,000, 200,000 tweets. So this is something which is the whole of country approach, which we can do, which we as a people should be doing, rather than leaving everything to the government to do. And then asking the government, what are you doing? The government can well turn around and say, what is it that you have done? After all, you are almost as concerned, you are also hurting. Why can't you do this simple thing? So I think we need to get more proactive on dimes. Strategic communication. We need to push the narrative about Pakistan being a terrorist state, Pakistan being a failed state, Pakistan being, as Asim Munir wants it to be, a hard state. And you know what his definition of a hard state was? That every institution, every organization following the law and doing what they were supposed to do as per the constitution. I mean, I felt like asking him, wait, what is the army doing? Are you acting as per the constitution? Why are you interfering in politics? The rot starts with you. Because you were the one, what business did he have to address the overseas Pakistanis convention? That is purely a civilian matter. What business did the army chief have to come and talk to them in uniform and then talk about, Riyasat-e Taiba and stuff like that? Yeah. So I think and I hope people who are watching your show will, at least some of them will take on to this and amplify whatever the Baloch, it's a cry of real distress. The Marang Baloch has been jailed for a month now. The jail sentence has been extended by another month under the maintenance of public order. How many people have actually talked about it or amplified the tweets? The Baloch Jagjati Council tweets about it every day. So all of us, everyone who is interested in the neighborhood, who is absolutely in anger and anguish at what has happened in Pahalgam, must hit back in Pakistan in the way you can on social media.
That is true, sir. I absolutely agree. And just to add to your point about these guys who were there meeting Asim Munir, some of our favorite Pakistani personalities were also sitting in the audience.
I believe so. I believe so.
And see,
I
this is the
believe so.
problem. We are so gullible in nature that we
Yeah.
believe some nice things said by someone, and
Yeah.
it's quite sad that people have to be told that, listen, hello. And we all, I mean, it's not that I knew it from day one when I was born. Let me just say that, clarify that very clearly. I also learned over time, but when I did learn over time, I did realize, no, just stay away from these people. They're no good. And these kind of operations basically reinforce the thinking that these guys are no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, how do you think that, a country like Pakistan, what does it, uh, with Trump being in power, with the world kind of becoming more commonsensical, if I may, and that's a new word I've kind of derived, commonsensical world. How do you think Pakistan tries to even sell this to the world, or these guys so moronic they're not even put that into their consideration?
You see, if you look at Pakistan's relations with the Arab world, the so-called brotherly Muslim Mamalik, all of them dislike Pakistan intensely. Whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it is UAE, they can't sell their children any longer. So these countries don't see through Pakistan. They have adopted a trajectory of development, of modernity, and getting on with life for the benefit of their people. And they find Pakistan is stuck in a time warp. The path that they have left, and all Pakistan can talk about is the jihad and this religion, more of religion. And the Arab world are saying, look, you are not the first or the last Muslim, yeah. There are others also. We are the original people. And if we feel that certain reforms are required, and they are getting a lot of Bangladesh, for example, is up in arms against MBS. If they get thrown out of Saudi Arabia, if they throw out Bangladeshis, those guys would be, their remittances. Bangladesh also gets a lot of remittances because of the labor. Where are they going to go? So unfortunately, we are surrounded on two sides, Bangladesh and Pakistan, who are stuck in a time warp. They're back in the 15th century. And they think that is the way forward. Look at their education system. It is so pathetic. And yet, how do they expect to compete in the modern world, in this technological and globalized world? How are they going to compete? But they're not concerned about that. They are concerned about pursuing even more religion, down the throats of the young children. So even amongst their so-called peers in the Arab world, I mean, look at the contrast between, let's say, Malaysia, Indonesia, who are also Islamic countries, with Pakistan. So they don't see the writing on the wall. They feel that, ultimately they will be the last Muslim left standing. And that's how they feel. The others, Muslims, don't think so. Other Muslims look down upon them.
Yeah, it's really funny. And to bring this kind of thing up when Israel is happening right now, Israel Gaza is happening, well, quite gutsy, if I may.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
that's the safety valve. Anything goes wrong, that's why you'll find every now and then you'll have a news item that Pakistan is going to recognize Israel. Then 15 दिन उस पे debate होती है. People forget everything else and they say, अच्छा, the government is going to recognize Israel? हम नहीं होने देंगे. So religious parties get some fodder, something to latch on to. Then once that is over, then it becomes Gaza. So this is the key tactics to keep diverting attention of the people.
Coming back to what you call our response, sir. I mean, a military response can go sideways, in the sense, can also have a military response from their side, but of course we all know that they don't have that kind of capability to do much. Nahi hai.
Yeah.
Now petrol
See,
hai.
on the military response, I am very confident that our three armed services plus the government know exactly what they're doing, and the response will be whatever the response needs to be done. But I'm looking, Adi, at a slightly longer term scenario, which is that we had thought that after Balakot, Pakistan would have learnt its lesson and would not attempt a venture like what they did in Pulwama ever again. Obviously, that lesson has been unlearned. They've forgotten that for whatever reason. We've discussed the reasons earlier. So, we, apart from the immediate kinetic response, if it comes or whatever it's going to be, we need to be looking at the longer term and perhaps non-kinetic responses that will ensure that you degrade Pakistan so much that they will not dare to do something like this ever again. Ever again. You have to use this opportunity to degrade Pakistan. And for this, you need to look at the fault lines in Pakistan and work to increase those fault lines, to amplify those fault lines. As I mentioned in my first book, I mentioned in my book on Balochistan, my book on the Pashtuns, Pakistan is imploding from inside. Whether it is the water issue, whether it is education, whether it is the population explosion, there are so many things that it's collapsing under its own weight. But the Baloch, the insurgency has been continuing since 1948 in one form or the other. Whenever the Baloch have felt strong enough, they've broken out in insurgency. You look at the Pashtuns, the question of the Durand line is Pakistan's biggest fault line because it's an unsettled border. And there are Pashtuns on both sides of the Durand line. These are the kinetic, non-kinetic issues which I feel that we should be pushing. We should be looking at and over the long term ensure that Pakistan is degraded to such an extent that it will be forced to live in peace with India. That it will be so caught up with their own internal issues that they would be thankful to have peace on the border with India. That is something which I think a lot of people, people like you and other people in other think tanks should be working on. Prepare papers, write letters, write articles, and build a public opinion on these issues.
That's true, sir. That's absolutely true. I mean, it's something we need to create a common consensus, and that's something which I think over the time with help, I think with a lot of impetus from people like you who started talking about Pakistan in a more pragmatic manner, if I may, who brought about reality, and then we started learning from you, reading your books, and the whole thing. Otherwise, the Pakistan conversation was always about LAC mein ho gaya, isko 2 kot ho gaya, 3 kot ho gaya. If you remember back in the day, it was all about ceasefire violations.
Yeah, right? Ceasefire violations, infiltration, and all. But those are just not even the top tip of the iceberg. They are important, but not the fundamental issues. Pakistan is a brittle state. It is such a brittle country, and we need to first of all understand where the brittleness is coming from. What are the fissures? And how can those fissures be expanded?
That's true, sir. Absolutely. Lastly, sir, I want to ask you one very, very simple question. Is about Kashmir itself. There's been a lot of this thing ki bhai, normal ho raha hai, theek hai, and that's understandable because the government has to sell, right? That's understandable. Government ko to apna narrative bechna hi hai. There's no question about it. And that's how it is. Things are theek hai, much better than what they were. But where do you put this and the reaction from Kashmir? Where do you put it across? Do you think the politics has even improved like 1%? Have the people people are going to face the brunt this time, right? And I can see the worry and this thing ki itne paise aa rahe the, ab nahi aayenge. The people are walking off, and so how do you think Kashmir as a whole will kind of get impacted?
I firmly believe, having watched Kashmir in the earlier phases in the 90s, when it was a situation was really bad to compare it to today. It's been an amazing journey how the Indian state has pulled back Kashmir from the precipice. And especially in the last 5 years, since 2019, there's been a marked change in Kashmir. People have realized, have felt peace for the first time. There has been a certain amount of socialization. People can go out in the evenings without fear. Businesses have started. Look at the kind of tourists that came in last year. 2.3 crores, 23 lakhs, or whatever it is in lakhs, 2.3 crores. The kind of money, the kind of prosperity that has come to Kashmir. All because of peace. Now, I concede the point that peace, because of a neighbor like Pakistan, which is jealous, can disrupt that peace by an incident like what happened in Pahalgam. But I think we should not get disheartened or throw the baby out with the bath water, saying that everything, nothing is normal in Kashmir, and we have all kinds of issues, and nothing was done, and it was too fragile. I don't think so. I think peace in Kashmir has taken roots. This will also go. Issues like this will also go. There will be a reckoning, and it will be back on track. And why Kashmiris are going to be very upset over this is that just when the tourist season was picking up, just when the Amarnath Yatra was going to begin, which brings in a lot of money into Kashmir, this incident has happened. So people say it cannot be a local who would have done this. It cannot be locals, because locals will never harm their own economy, will not harm the livelihood of their brethren. So the Kashmiris themselves are going to react. And already you can, I was hearing some of these tourists saying that they were helped so much by the Kashmiris, and the Kashmiris are extremely upset at their businesses being affected. So I would not be pessimistic about what this incident means for the long-term stability and peace in Kashmir. I think it was a one-off, and Pakistan will continue to try. Infiltration will go up now that the snows are melting, and will continue to send in people and to create more and more incidents. I think the Indian state over the years has developed a very good security grid, and will make sure that none of this does not get repeated. And once there is retribution and once India reacts, I think that will also have a huge impact, both for the tourists and for the people of Kashmir.
If I may just ask you a sideline, sir, there is also that ideology, right? The jihad ideology, which cannot be taken away in this thing. So yeah,
Yes,
we can push for normalcy, we can push for the tourism to kind of happen there. But
that ideology is not confined only to Kashmir.
Yeah.
That ideology is all over. Look at Bangladesh. We had 15 years of peace in Bangladesh because of Sheikh Hasina. And now that she is gone, the kind of noises and voices that are coming out of Bangladesh, it's like coming out under a rock. And suddenly they're all there to see. So this jihadi ideology is going to take a long time before it can be snuffed out.
It's a difficult day, sir.
Yes, it's been a tough time, tough day, and
yeah.
So,
thank you, sir. Thank you for spending the time. It is indeed a pleasure talking to you, but I hope we can talk on better circumstances.
Yes, I know. Well, look forward to that. But every challenge, every event that is adverse comes with an opportunity. And I think to look at the positive side, I'm saying my word very guardedly. There can be no positives of people who have lost their lives. But I think we will be able to retrieve. Because we cannot allow the lives of these people who have sacrificed their lives to mean nothing, to go in waste. We have to, जो हमारी श्रद्धांजलि होगी उनको, is if we are able to come out of this stronger. That will be the best um, tribute we can pay to their sacrifices of these brave people who were shot at point blank range in a very dastardly manner. I mean, that's a shocking part of it. But it should strengthen us rather than weaken us.
Yeah, that message I think is very important, and I've been trying to say that in the morning, sir. Stop the divides within yourselves. Stop doing this caste nonsense. They didn't ask your caste or language.
Yeah,
They asked a major thing that you need to understand, which is your religion. Okay, this is a let's please face facts. This is what exactly what happened in Israel. They were hit because of something. They were because of the fact they were Jews. Here people have been hit and openly told them because you're Hindus. So there's that thing needs to be very clear. And if I mean I just add to what you're saying is that in case Kashmir wants to uh, demonstrate to the nation, this is the opportunity to do so. Clean up within. I'm sure people, if they put their heads to it, they can find out stuff. They can do things. Societal pressure is quite a bit. क्योंकि बंदे आपके मरेंगे साहब. एक चीज याद करना, अभी 1500 उठे हैं आपके बंदे कश्मीर में से एक रात एक दिन के अंदर. अब इनके कितने घर टूटेंगे, कितने लोग रोड पे आएंगे इस चक्कर में. This is something that Kashmir needs to look at. The society needs to look at on their own.
yeah.
Because we don't want it, but at the end of it, if this is what is going to happen, then there will be consequences for this thing. And local support के बिना ये सब चीजें it's not that easy. So it will kind of have a very bad impact on the region. And fair enough, if that is what it is, that is what it is. But I think the society needs to stand up, reject this with all sincerity, work and get this thing going. That's what I would say, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Aadi. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, and let's hope for better times ahead. Namaskar.
Yeah. Good night and Jai Hind.